Well, howdy there, and welcome back to the Mike on the Mic podcast with your music loving host, DJ Mikey D, baby. And today's episode is the Led Zeppelin success story, baby. So without further ado, we're going to get into that. It's all Led Zeppelin today, baby. So let's get into it. Led Zeppelin, it was an English rock band formed in London in 1968 that consisted of Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham. And just like the Beastie Boys' departure that we talked about in the Beastie Boys success episode, go check it out. Led Zeppelin's very own John Bonham would die in 1980 and break the band up, sadly. But before we get into all that information about Led Zeppelin, let's talk about their success. That's why we're here. After establishing the band, they weren't even called Led Zeppelin yet, actually. They were going by the New Yardbirds. And their first show under the new name Led Zeppelin, that would be, oh so popular. Their first show under Led Zeppelin wasn't until October 25th, 1968. And they released their first album called Led Zeppelin on January 12th, 1969. In their first year under the new name, they would become, it would be such an iconic name. They completed 4 U.S. and 4 U.K. tours. They went on 8 freaking concert tours in 1 year. And that's also when they released their second album, Led Zeppelin 2. And since they were on the road most of that year, because they had flipping 8 tours, all their music was recorded on the road, which was something not a lot of bands were doing at the time, which I thought was pretty cool. Or at least they were, but didn't have actual road setup. They just would go to different studios and stuff. But it was cool. It was cool. Something not a lot of bands would do. And they found it. I guess they probably found it pretty easy to make new material. Maybe when they're busy as freaking hell. I don't know. That's just something we will never know. But their second album would reach even bigger charts than the first. Than Led Zeppelin 1. The Led Zeppelin 2 was the first album that would reach number 1 the first week of its release. And many say it created their heavy and hard, brutal but direct kind of sound. That just put them on the map even bigger. And many people actually believe that this was the starting point for heavy metal and metal bands as well. And we'll get more into that real soon. But in just 2 years they were converted to the biggest band in the world, which is not something to take lightly here with Led Zeppelin. This was the actual truth. A lot of bands would come up and be like, "Oh, I'm the biggest band in the world." These people were the biggest band in the world at the time. During the 70s, Led Zeppelin was on top of commercial and critical success, and they were definitely the most influential group of that entire time period. And this is also the time where we see the band starting to change their style and stage performance. They started wearing some flashy uniforms. Their stage presence would just... They had all the bells and whistles. They had the lasers, the fog. All that was starting to come into play, which is just an incredible atmosphere that they could bring as a team. I mean, seriously, just a brilliant move. With stage performance, especially if you're coming up with the music and you're selling out shows, you need to focus on your stage performance. So such a smart idea by this band for sure. And with all the commercial success too, like most bands at the time, they started getting the reputation that they were pretty big partiers. throwing TVs out the window, trashing hotels, that kind of thing. And I don't know. A lot of people also thought it was kind of exaggerated heavily, but even so, it's just this is something bands like kind of did at the time, so it's really nothing to be embarrassed about in my opinion. But they do deny being some big partiers, but I kind of believe otherwise. But that's just an opinion. I think it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's what you do. Like if you had a band, you'd be partying heavy for sure. But anyway, 1970 is when Led Zeppelin 3 would come out, and instead of a hard rock heavy metal sound that they built the foundation on, it was an acoustic sounding album, which was a little weird. Kind of received some mixed reactions from many. But was still able to reach number one in the U.S. and U.K. no problem, which is really cool with bands like this. They experiment, they do their own kind of thing, but then they eventually return back to the roots, like we see with Led Zeppelin, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, it's cool. They kind of experiment a little bit, and I don't think that's a wrong play. In my opinion, I think it's a really good thing that bands should do. Just kind of tease a little bit, to get a little taste of some stuff. So I think the acoustic album of Led Zeppelin 3 was kind of cool. But yeah, it received some mixed reactions. You're going to get that here and there, but it still did pretty good, which is pretty cool. And but it had no competition with the next album, Led Zeppelin 4, or Untitled 4, many folks would call it. It was released November 8th, 1971, selling 37 million copies. And this album is the one that had Stairway to Heaven on it, which was the most played song on American rock radio at the time, and it's still one of the most recognized songs in the world. And after that success of the album, they went on tour for roughly 2 years, I think. They started late 1971 and ended early 1973 on their tours from that album, which is pretty freaking nuts, dude. Then in March 1973, Houses of the Holy, which is a fantastic record. We actually have that on record here. Houses of the Holy would release. It would chart again, and at this time they were consistently filling large stadiums, auditoriums, all the bells and whistles. I mean, people love going to these shows, and like I said before, their stage performance and stage setup was just unbelievable, which made people actually want to go to these shows. And the music, obviously, the music was just freaking amazing. But with these large productions and large shows comes a lot of work, and they had to slow the roll down a bit. Plus, there were also rumors of Page starting to use heroin before some of the shows, but he has denied those allegations. And personally, not 100% sure, but I'm going to take his word for it because that's all we have to go on. But yeah, a lot of rumors like that was starting to go around, and I'm not 100% sure, and I wasn't even born at this time. I didn't get to see this incredible surge of Led Zeppelin because I was born in 2000, and I wasn't able to tell if that was going on. But yeah, I'm just gonna take his word for it because that's all I can do. But yeah, they started to slow the roll down a little bit of touring. And in 1977 is when they started getting back into their groove. They started a new North American tour. And while on that tour, sadly, Robert Plant received some news that his son died from a stomach virus, and they canceled the rest of that tour. And then the band would later release an album called In Through the Outdoor, which I haven't even heard of that. I didn't listen to that one yet at all. And they were set to tour in 1980, which would be the first tour since the 1977 one when Robert Plant got that news. But while on this tour, in through the Outdoor album, Bonham, this is where Bonham was starting to drink heavily, and when they were staying at Page's house in Clewer, Windsor in Berkshire, England, Bonham would be found dead the next morning after staying at Page's house, choking on his own vomit from drinking. And after the death of Bonham, this band was pretty much done at that point. Some of the fellas did some solo work, but other than that, they were completely done. And like the Beastie Boys, the band members agreed to do a documentary called Becoming Led Zeppelin, which released in 2021 that I didn't know about. I didn't watch it at all. Definitely gonna be doing that. And that's the last thing I heard of these from these fellas. I don't know if they've done anything else more than that than in 2021. I probably should have researched that, but then again, I also haven't seen a documentary, so I'm a little behind. But yeah, you can't deny the impact that Led Zeppelin had to rock and roll, progressive metal. I mean, these dudes were the set in stone that created your Deep Purple, Megadeth, even bands like Smashing Pumpkins. You can tell they took inspiration through Led Zeppelin, just their incredible sound that they were able to come up with, and yeah, I think that is why Led Zeppelin had a success story, boy. And thank you for listening to the Mike on the Mic podcast. I am your host, DJ Mikey D. I hope you enjoyed this cast and learned something new, possibly. And DJ Mikey D himself is signing out, and I will see you next time.